is what we're going to need to make our raccoon case. I have pre-cut rectangles here from one exterior fabric, which is Tula Pink's beautiful Pinkerville line. And this is the Imaginarium print. I have by Annie's Soft and Stable, which is foam interfacing, because it gives a little extra security to your glasses to have that extra bounce, but you can of course use regular quilt batting or similar as well. And I also have a rectangle of lining fabric, and this is also Tula Pink, and this is the Fairy Dust print from the same line. We will also need zipper, and I use zipper by the yard because I find that convenient, and I have chosen a contrast zipper pull to go with this one. And I'm going to show you all about how to work with this later in the video. Anyway, now we are going to cut our rectangles so that they are shaped like we want them for the case. And then we use this template, and it is only to shape one corner or two corners, one end. And I do this by simply cutting along the line of this, and this is the 8¼ inch long side. This is the 9-inch long side, so we only cut this short side. And I simply, I have to tighten this a bit. I simply just cut along my template directly with my rotary cutter. If you are uncomfortable with this, you can just as well just mark this line with a pen, and then use scissors to cut this out instead. I need to change my rotary cutting blade, I can tell clearly. There we go. And we do this for all of our pieces. And I actually use the same blade for everything, and I just change it when it gets dull. Or clearly a little too late in this case. And it's not super important that it's exact, it's just the lining. And here we have my exterior print. And what is important to think about here is that since this is a ready-made raccoon case, when you select your print, the part that will show on the front of your raccoon case will be on the right hand side. So if you imagine this will be the case, then this pony part here or unicorn part here is actually what will show on the front. So that's why it looks a little silly when I have it here, but in the end the print will end up in the right place. So for me to cut this, I will turn it around and I'll do it like this. And there we go. We cut off the ends on the exterior fabric too. There we go. And we have 3 pieces ready to work with. And here I actually gonna quilt my exterior to the lining because I think that looks rather pretty. So I'm gonna give this go outside and give this a little spritz of temporary glue just so it lays in place when I quilt it, and then I will quilt it using painter's tape, and that I will show you in a second. So I have now attached my exterior fabric to my foam interfacing, and I did this using 505 basting spray. If you don't have basting spray at home, you can of course use clover clips or pins just to hold the fabric in place while you quilt it if you want to quilt it. It's not necessary to quilt the fabric to the foam interfacing, but I like the way it looks, so I'm going to do that. And when I do that, instead of marking with pens or something that I have to remove afterwards, I prefer to use painter's tape. And it's nice that it's a good quality painter's tape, otherwise when you try to sew over it or next to it, it will let go of the fabric and your line won't be even. So make sure you buy not the cheapest brand, but a little more high quality. I place my ruler like I want my lines, and I prefer a nice diagonal line. And I want to avoid quilting straightly over the eye of the unicorn here in the print, so I place the eye a bit out of the way from where the stitch line will go. I just pull out a bit of tape and I stick it next to my ruler. The ruler is only there to make sure the line is even, because it's surprisingly easy to get it wonky even though you try to eye it straight. There we go. And now we bring this over to the sewing machine. I'm here at my sewing machine and I have put on a walking foot to make sure the fabric feeds evenly. And I have also lengthened my stitch length to about 3, but use whatever you think works nicely on your machine. I will now sew right next to the tape, using the tape as a guide. There we go. We have a perfectly nice straight line, and I'll then sew exactly on the other side of the tape before I reposition it. There we go. And now I just pull up the tape carefully without getting any thread stuck. And I move it over and place it right next to the stitch line, using the stitch line as a guide. And then I will sew my next seam. And I'll continue like this. So let's speed that part up a little. And there we go, one nicely quilted raccoon case to be. Now that we have quilted our exterior, it's time to prepare the zipper. And I have one 26-inch long piece here, and I use zipper by the yard or zipper tape, so my zipper pull is not yet on. But if you have a ready-made zipper or a zipper with a pull on, just cut off the end and pull your zipper through. We are gonna divide our zipper here because we will only be using one side of it. And take note that this is the right side of the zipper, whereas the wrong one is all flat, because we need to make sure we get the zipper in the right direction. You can put this away, the extra one. It's a great thing to make 2 cases at the same time, since you will be using only half of your zipper otherwise. And now when we're gonna put down our zipper, we put our exterior fabric right side up. We put our zipper tape right side down. And now when we attach this, actually what we're going to do, I'm going to use zipper tape, or it's not zipper tape, but double-sided tape. But you can of course use clips as well. And if you're using clips, make sure you place this down. You take your lining fabric and you place that one on top, and you make sure this is really edge to edge here. I hope you can see. And then you place it down like that, and you clip carefully, making sure that a piece of this is sticking out, which I totally forgot to mention. I'm sorry about that. Make sure you have a little extra zipper sticking out here, and then you clip, and you continue this all the way around, making sure it's edge to edge, and you place a clip. And you continue all the way around, but since I prefer using double-sided tape, I'm going to show you that now. And you just place your tape carefully, edge to edge, all the way around your exterior here. It can get a little wonky, weird feeling because of the cover of the tape around the rounded edges, but don't worry about that. Once we take off the top, it'll lay nicely flat. Oops. And continue all the way down, like that. And now when it's time to place the zipper on, it's much easier because you can actually place the zipper first and then place the lining on top. And this was super hard to get to separate, but that's just because I'm filming, I know that. There we go. And you remove this all the way around. Whoops, clearly I hadn't stuck it properly there. There we go. Now you take your zipper, making sure that you have a little extra sticking out when you do this, because if you don't, it will be difficult to get your zipper pull on afterwards. Stick it with the zipper right side down. All the way around the edges here, carefully. And this will pop up a little, but it doesn't matter. Once we sew it down, it'll be nicely in place. And continue all the way around and all the way down. And now we do the same again. Place your tape edge to edge with your zipper. And here you might have to press and poke a little to get it to lie flat. And continue all the way around. And all the way down. And again we take off the cover and we place our clearly didn't stink it properly. Place our lining right side down. And here it's important now that we get it edge to edge again. So carefully make sure, thank you darling, carefully make sure you get this properly put down. Here we go. I like working with the tape because I know once I've stuck it in place, it'll actually stay in place. Unlike the when you pin or clip the fabric and zipper can move a little. And by doing it this way, we don't have to worry about that. Let's go to the sewing board. Okay, so it's time to sew down the zipper. And I actually use an edge stitch foot with a guide, because I find that's easier than trying to follow the back of the zipper here, because you don't get that edge you would if you were sewing with this side up. So to make sure I keep a proper 1/4 inch seam allowance, I instead use the edge foot and I follow the edge. I have shortened my stitch length a little to about 2.2 or 2.4 since we're sewing things together now. If you don't have an edge foot for your machine, you can use a quilting foot with a 1/4 inch guide, or you can of course use your zipper foot if you prefer. And now this is falling out, and I have managed to get a little bubble, so I have to straighten out my fabric before I continue. And take it slow and steady here in the corner so you make sure you get a nice even seam. No stress when sewing, right? Making sure you push down your zipper so it lays nice and flat, or as nice and flat as it possibly can when we're sewing curves. And it's just the final little stretch of straight stitching left. There we go. And now, since we have a rather bulky interfacing here, I will use my scissors with the zigzag scissors to cut the corners, but I will show you that in a second before we turn this around. So we've sewn down the zipper, and now I use my zigzag scissors to trim the rounded sections here. If you don't have zigzag scissors, you can just cut little V notches into the seam allowance to allow it to lay flat once we turn it. And I actually cut into my zipper as well. As long as you have a good quality zipper, it's no problem to cut into the zipper tape a little. I find it lies much nicer and flatter when I notch the zipper as well. So this is a little heavy for the scissors, but these Fiskars scissors usually can shoot through most things. There we go. And now we turn this. And here we have the beginnings of a zipper case. Of a glasses case. And this will need a bit of pressing, so I'm going to go over to my pressing station and give this a good press before I come back to you. So I gave this a bit of a pressing, but we're going to have to saw down this edge here to get a neat result, like you see in this one here. I have stitched the edge, and that is what we're going to do too before we put on the zipper pull. So back to the sewing machine we go. Now we're going to do the top stitching, and for this I am using a 1.5mm compensator foot, and it's a little guide here that allows me to put this here and use this as a guide to stitch exactly the same distance all the way. If you don't have a compensator foot, I recommend that you use your stitch in the ditch foot, and that is this little thing with a guide in the middle. And on your domestic machine where you can move your needle, you simply move your needle a bit to the left so that you can use this guide right next to the fabric in order to sew that perfect seam. Okay, I have lengthened my stitch to about 3 again, the same I used when I was quilting. And I do this for all top stitching. Let's do this. Let me just double check that the stitches look nice on the back as well. And I recommend that you do that too, so you know that you have good tension, because it's not fun checking that after you've sewn the entire thing. And again, slow and steady wins the race here when it comes to sewing around the curved edges. Because here the guide foot cannot do all the guiding for you, but you have to actually keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't derail your stitch line. If you need to adjust very much, stop, raise your presser foot and adjust your fabric, because otherwise you might risk bending your needle, since we're working with quite a few layers here. I have a bit of tape sticking out here, as you can see, but I will remove that in a second. And there we go. Top stitching all done. So I gave this a bit of a pressing, and now it's time to put on the zipper pull. And when we do this, I fold these two together like this. And this is why we want to have that bit of extra tape here, zipper tape, because that will make this so much easier. And here we want to line these two up so that it will close in the middle. And I start by, if you find this hard, by the way, you can of course make this easier by just clipping these two in place. I'm just used to holding on to everything for dear life, but if you are new to this, this will make it so much easier because everything will lie nice and still. If you have the bigger clover clips, they can actually be even better for this because it will press them together even more. Like that. Now I put this on. It's much easier if these are uneven. So if you ended up with two exactly the same length, shorten one about 1/4 of an inch is what I usually have. Thread your pull. This is the up of the pull. So you're supposed to thread this on first on the longer side. You'll hear it like a little click. I don't know if you could hear that, but once it's properly on, and then you take this one and you carefully guide it into your zipper pull. And once you have them both in there so that you heard the little click, place it down, pull these two and press them down firmly into your mat, and then you just pull these forward like that and continue all the way up like that. And we have ourselves a beautiful, hopefully, nearly done case. And now we come to the part where we're going to sew this together. And I'm going to remove the tape once I'm done. Here you have this very neat top that you get from using just one side of the zipper. And it's nice and squishy. I can't stop touching it. And now we're gonna sew these off. And for that, we're actually going to turn this inside out. And I forgot to mention, if you find this tricky getting it on, I have a video tutorial on this subject here on YouTube as well. So just go to my channel and you can see more in detail how I do, because it can be tricky if you're not used to doing this. Anyway, now we're going to turn it so we get the lining side out. And for this, it's easier if we open it up, but don't open it all the way, as then you have to put on the zipper pull again. And then hold it steady at the bottom, keep a firm pinch here so you don't accidentally pull off the zipper pull again. And we just turn it so we get the lining side out. There we go, and we can pull up the zipper pull a bit just to keep it safe and secure. Now here, what we're going to do is we're going to measure how long we want our zipper case or our Raccoon case. And when I measure this, I leave about 1 inch at least on each side of the glasses. And I happen to know that this case is a good size for my glasses. So I can just actually use that one as a guide. So as you can see on this one, if we pull it wrong side out, this is what we're going to do as well. This leaves from the end about 1 inch on each side. You can do a little more or a little less depending on how high your glasses are and how thick lining you used. So I'm probably going to make this one slightly longer, since these are the smaller pairs of glasses I have. So what I'm going to do is chop this off at the appropriate distance. So what I want is about an extra inch. So let's take off a little over 1/4 inch here, I think. There. And I will cut this off, and then I'll have a seam allowance here, and that should be a good size case. So I will use this, and I will cut it down to size. And then we will go to our sewing table. So at the sewing machine, we're gonna make sure that we get our zipper correctly. We want it standing up like this, not laying down like that or like that, but exactly straight, so it's flat at the top. And to ensure this, we will use a couple of clips in my case. And then with my walking foot, I will make this seam with a slightly generous 1/4 inch seam allowance or so. And let's do this. It's a little heavy here, so take it slow. Make sure you backstitch properly, and be careful when you get to the zipper so you don't break your needle accidentally. Make sure you go so slow and steady here. And again, backstitch before you cut your thread. And now I'm actually going to have to switch to my other machine to zigzag this. I'm going to trim off a little bit at the corner here before I zigzag, and also a little bit here at the end of the zipper, to make sure I don't get a big bulky corner when we turn it. So let me switch machines. So I have trimmed down my seam allowance, and I also trimmed a little extra at the corners just to make it smoother when we turn it. I now have my Husqvarna domestic machine, and I have set it to a rather tight zigzag, and I'm using a walking foot since it's quite a few layers this. And as we're starting at a fairly high height, I've made myself a little hump jumper from a scrap piece, and I folded it so that it's slightly higher, or about the same height as my case here. So I put that behind there, and I put this here where I'm gonna start sewing, and hopefully that will help this machine feed a bit more evenly. So let's do this. Let's zigzag the edges here. After we have zigzagged the edge, this is what it will look like. We had a little technical malfunction, so the end of that video didn't really get recorded, but anyway, it's just a simple zigzag stitch all the way over with carefully secured threads. And now all that's left to do is actually turn this thing and see how it looks. And we just pop it out the corners. If you need to, just take a pen or a chopstick to help you poke out the little corner here to get it as straight as nice as possible. There we go. And we close it up. Oops, there we go. And we have ourselves one very cute raccoon case with a unicorn. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you will have much fun making your Raccoon cases, and if you do, make sure you hashtag with hashtag Raccoon case and hashtag Pink Pony Design so I get to see them, and never hesitate to contact me if you have any trouble making any of my patterns.